Good morning, adventurers. My name is Ben, and welcome to a morning show where I sit around, drink some tea, and talk about D&D. So, first up for D&D today, we have a Dead People tea mug with good Mr. Caduceus Clay, and inside of it we have some Tension Tamer tea. It was a very long day, just filled with many of frustration, so I'm doing my best to channel my good buddy Cad here, and hopefully the Tension Tamer will help cut this headache out a little bit. Just a smidge. But that is neither here nor there, because I am here to talk to you guys now, which is a much better part of my day every day. And I am realizing I am a dingus and totally forgot to bring in a box of Tension Tamer to show you guys. So pretend that right here, there is a box of Tension Tamer. I'm also realizing just now that there is black paint on my neck from work today. So we're really on a hot start here. Oh well. It is what it is. Big news, kind of big news. Well, it's news. Not something super unexpected, but it is, in fact, news that I am excited about. They have announced a new D&D source book, called Journeys in the Radiant Citadel. I believe it is called Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel. It is being project-led by one of the people behind Von Richten's Guide, which is a really, really phenomenal book. It is a conglomeration of 13 little adventures, kind of like Strixhaven was, and kind of like Tales from the Yawning Portal, that sort of thing. So I am very, very excited about all of that. It looks like it's going to be a pretty cool type of book. There isn't a whole lot of information out about it right now, but I'm sure we'll be getting more and more of it as it comes here. But a piece of information that I did find via Polygon is that it appears to be the first 5th edition book, presumably the first D&D book, period, that is going to be penned entirely by black and brown authors, which is really, really awesome. We definitely need more of those viewpoints in the TTRPG space, in a like flagship sort of thing like Dungeons and Dragons, and so I'm very excited to get to buy this book, support these authors. Hopefully they continue to be brought back. Hopefully they continue to get projects like this, and hopefully there are going to be more companies that follow suit because of it. I know there are some like smaller companies that do put a lot of emphasis on getting these less prevalent voices in sort of like the driver's seat on a lot of their projects, and I'm really excited that D&D is doing that too. So I am very excited for this book, and I can't wait to get it, because honestly, I love a good conglomeration adventure book. I always think you can pull a lot out of it. Honestly, oftentimes more than you can pull out of like a straight up adventure module. So obviously, whenever that comes out, expect me to talk about it, but that won't be until at least next season, if not the one after that. So it's a ways down the line. Anyway, getting into what we're talking about today, we are talking about creating magic items. A very broad topic that I was shocked to find that I had not really gone in on at all on this show before. So let's talk about it, shall we? So creating magic items can be tricky. That's just sort of the long and short of it. It can be very tricky. Because the DMG has a section that's like, 4 paragraphs long about it. And honestly, there's a lot of tips in there that are good, solid tips, but they don't really tell you a whole lot. The best tip that they have in the DMG for creating a magic item is modify an existing item, which is a good tip. Like, it's a good, conceptual thing to be able to do. But that doesn't really help you if you want to create stuff. And so I'm gonna talk a little bit about how I do it. I think that I have a good sense of game balance. I'm intimately familiar with the 5th edition engine, as it were, and I feel like I do a pretty good job of creating stuff that is not game breaking, but will sometimes toe that line, depending on what it is. But before we get into that bit of it, I think that it's important to establish here and now that if a DM gives you a magic item and then they come to you later and say, hey, this is really overpowered. I want to walk back the power level on it. You can't just kick and scream and get all angry about it. What you can do is, get reasoning from them, figure out like what it is that they don't like about it, and maybe you guys can come to some kind of compromise if you were really, really tied to this item or you really, really like it, which you probably will because it's super powerful. But if they give you a homebrew magic item, it is a homebrew thing. It came out of their brain, so they're going to be the ones that are going to be able to change it, and that is how it goes. The entire table is built around collaboration. They're not taking something away from you to like punish you necessarily or to, ruin your fun. They're instead doing it for realistically probably the good of the table, the ability for like the entire table to continue to enjoy themselves and not feel like you are like spotlit and everything like that. So there is that, and I think it's important that with any homebrew, any third party, anything like that, there is the open line, actually all the official content too. There is the open line of communication between DM and player, that there is always there is that accessibility to be able to say, hey, I want to change this. I don't like the way that it's interacting with the game. I think that it needs to be changed. And that does go the other way too. Like players can be like, hey, I really feel like this is not something that is great for me. Like it's not really working with me. Is there any way we can change it to fit my character? Your DM should say yes to that. Unless they have like grand plans and they're like, I promise you it will come around. And then you kind of need to trust them, or you have to be like, okay, great. Can we do something about it right now though? So with that said and that out of the way, let's talk about making a magic item. The DMG is correct in that one of the easiest, and not one of, I mean the absolute easiest way to, run with making a magic item is to take one that exists and modify it. A good example on here that they highlight is the Flame Tongue weapon, which is just any blade essentially that deals fire damage as a result of the enchantment. The damage type can be changed. You want a sword that does lightning damage instead? Boom, you got a sword that does lightning damage instead. All you have to do is change the one word in the description of Flame Tongue, and that's it. Then you're set. Then you're there. Same sort of thing for like potions and stuff that helps augment abilities and stuff like that. You can just kind of swap out in and out things like that. The example they give here is a potion of climbing can easily become a potion of stealth. Like if you get a climbing speed of 30 feet, maybe you get advantage on stealth checks or something like that. Something that is not going to do anything insane to you, but sort of mimics the power level of the other thing. Now, if, there is not an item that fits what you want, or if you cannot find exactly something that will mimic or be a good surrogate for what you want, you go to the creation of your own thing. I do recommend before you go to the creation of your own thing, unless you are comfortable with the creation of your own thing, that you scour the internet or scour some third-party sources for some other options. The internet is a great place to go, obviously. I highly recommend checking out things like Loot Tavern, the Griffin Saddlebag, Spectre Creations, all on like Instagram. Griffin Saddlebag was the first D&D exclusive account that I followed. He makes magic items every single day. He's really great. His second book is on Kickstarter right now. You should definitely go check it out. I have his first one, and I have spoken, high praises about it forever. Loot Tavern is a really, really fantastic other option too. They do really great work there. All of their stuff is pretty well balanced. Same thing goes for Spectre Creations, who made the Cosmic Dragon Breviary that I have talked about several times before as another one of my favorite third-party books. If you are looking for like actual books, I've talked about several of them on here. Most recently, the Vault of Treasure from Kobold Press. Fantastic book, chock full of items. It's like 200 pages long, maybe a little bit more, I think, actually. Definitely check that out if you are looking for a third-party book. But if you're like, nah, that's too much work, I don't want to do that, I can't find anything that's kind of right, let's just go for it, then just go for it. Because again, you can have that conversation always, but it's important to at least try to get it right the first time around. one of the I don't want to call it a tip, but one of the things that will help you the most, I promise, that I guarantee you it will help you incredibly, if you are trying to do this thing, is just an understanding of the balance in the game of 5th edition. Like, you have to understand how things like bounded accuracy work, things like that, so that you don't hand your players something that will absolutely just brutalize your game. And you just have to, like, work with that. So, according to the DMG, they break it down by rarity here, and it gives you some loose bounds with which to play with. So, the rarities are obviously common, uncommon, rare, very rare, legendary. They don't have artifact listed on here because artifacts are kind of their own thing. But they also give you a max spell level column and a max bonus column. These are like bare bones information columns here, but they are helpful, I will say. Max spell level is the maximum level of a spell that a magic item should be able to replicate in a, like, once per day, you have 3 charges or something like that sort of thing. So, like, a common magic item, let's say maybe once per day, a common magic item lets you cast the shield spell as a reaction, like a Ring of Shielding, which I think is actually a magic item in an official published source. So, like, you should have just found that to begin with. But that's not the point. The point is that max spell level for commons are 1st, uncommons are 3rd, rares are 6th, very rares are 8th, and legendaries are 9th. That's just how it goes. Then the max bonus are for static bonuses that are being applied, like armor class bonuses to hit bonuses, damage bonuses, that kind of thing. Max bonus for a common, there is not one. Generally, common items do not confer any kind of static bonus like that because that is a more powerful enchantment. Uncommons are +1, rares are +2, very rares are +3, and legendaries are +4. That is, again, a guideline. Most things that you find will not go above +3 anyway, so you are kind of looking at that 4 as, like, a soft ceiling anyway. Like, you won't really get there. Sorry, the 3 is the soft ceiling. You won't get to 4. That's what I was going for there. So, then they also have the question of attunement listed here, where you need to decide if the properties that the item confers are powerful enough to require attunement. And oftentimes, if you have to ask yourself that question, the answer is yes. It just is. However, I will say, you have to also gauge what level of play your players are at, because obviously for level 3 party, a +1 weapon is a phenomenal boon of a weapon to have. But a level 17 party, a +1 weapon is not necessarily going to be the best thing in the world. If you're using, like, the full expanse of 5th edition rules, where magic is relatively rampant in the world and not, like, super rare like some people will play in their settings. And so you have to think about think about it at the different levels, because realistically, with the way that rarity is broken down between uncommon, rare, very rare, legendary, those sort of associate with the 4 different tiers of play that go into D&D 5th edition as sort of like the upper level of each of those tiers. So that 1st through 5th level, you shouldn't really be finding things over uncommon. Same goes for 6th through 10th with rare, 11 through 15, and then 16 through 20, all the way up that scale. That is not to say that you can't find things like that in there. It just means that you probably shouldn't. So I've talked a lot of, like, about what the DMG says and around a few things here. But when you are sitting down to actually make a magic item, I am a big believer in staying on theme. Pick a theme and go with that theme, because what you want to do is create a magic item with a purpose, in my mind. So a good example is that in my home game that I talk about all the time on this show, we are going into the final chapter of it. They have effectively homebrewed my version of Vestiges of Divergence from Critical Role, legacy weapons from older editions, whatever you want to call them. They are weapons that they have upgraded as they've gone through, character growth and stuff like that. I love that kind of thing. And so I wanted to make sure that each of the weapons had their specific theme. And so as they found their items and weapons, that they had a themed appearance, purpose, and origin. Each of these were linked to one of the gods in the world, and so I did my best to stay on theme as much as I possibly could with each of these weapons, because what I really wanted was to convey that these were not necessarily things that were being crafted specifically for them, but that they were instead reaping the rewards of having as part of their world that they happen to have come across them. And because of that, I think that I end up with some generally pretty cool stuff. The example I'm going to give here is a sword that was forged for the Champion of Pelor back, long time ago. But it is in my world, Pelor is like essentially the chair of the God Council. And so what he gets, or what this is it is a aggressive kind of weapon more than anything else. It's a great sword that the barbarian is wielding, called the Dawn Razor. It gains a +2 bonus to attack and damage rolls made with the weapon, and attacks that are made with that weapon deal an additional d6 fire damage. That is its base form. Its next form up, when it upgrades, the bonus to attack and damage increases to +3. And then also, when you either critically hit a creature or reduce it to 0 hit points, a gout of flame shoots out of the blade. Each hostile creature within 10 feet of you must make a DC 16 dexterity saving throw or take 2d6 fire damage. So, these are things that sort of emulate the idea of this god of fire and, in a sense, war, as he is sort of like a strong-fisted leader in the pantheon that I have created here, or that I've cultivated. I didn't create it. So it is one of those things where, like, it tries to emulate that sort of thing. But I went ahead and I looked at where I thought each of those rarity levels should be as I created these magic items. And then I went into my existing stockpile of magic items to pull from and found the ones that I thought were closest to it. And which is how I got the D6 levels, how I got the attack bonuses, and how I got the spell effect. It's not a spell effect, but the effect of like the ambient fire. I went ahead and I compared it directly to a bunch of stuff, and I transferred things over. I sort of like to cherry pick a couple of different things and put them together. Usually, if I am creating something from scratch, I have a soft rule on how many effects a thing can have. For me, it is 1 for common, 1 or 2 for uncommon, 2 or 3 for rare, 3 or sometimes 4 for very rare, and legendaries are sometimes 3, 4, or sometimes 5 if you're if it's a very specific 5th effect. I don't usually go over 4, but if I am like making something up at that point, and there is one more really specific effect that I want to hit on there, I will tap that into the legendary effect there. Now, again, the other thing is you have to remember what level the characters are going to be playing at with these items. If they're playing at a high level game, you are going to have these crazy bonuses. You're going to look at that and you're going to go, wow, that seems unbalanced. And then you look at their character sheets and you go, wow, they seem super powerful. That's the point. You try and make things that will match the other, or will match their characters, because that's the point. It's a fun game. It's supposed to be a fun game. And then you try and kill them with stuff. You just throw a bunch of stuff at them and you let them work their way through it. And either you kill them or they kill it, and it's a good time for everybody involved. I don't know, man. But that is the overall process, I guess, for creating magical items. I know that, like, I sort of jumped around with this one. I didn't give specific explicit steps. So actually, let's break down some explicit steps here. 1, search for other items. 2, if you can't find any other items, come up with a theme that you want to create, or that you want to emulate, exhibit. I don't know, the theme that you want to like present. 3, determine what power level you need it to be at, being 1, 2, 3, or 4, essentially. And then 4, decide on the number of effects. And 5, pick those effects. And then flavor those effects accordingly to number, I think it was 3. So 5 and 3 kind of go together, where you are flavoring your effects that you have picked to emulate that theme that you have decided on earlier. That is what you need to go with. And use all of the existing stuff that is in there, like that is in official material, is in third-party material. It has been playtested and balanced for a reason. You can use it as a guide, if nothing else. So that is everything I have to talk to you guys about with magic items for now. Let's move on to what shows we have coming out today. It is Wednesday, which means, of course, we have Dimension 20, we have Knocked Prone, we have Venture Maidens, and we have Trials and Trebuchets. So go check them out. Please let them know that I sent you, because that will be fun at some point here. I don't know when, but I'm sure at some point it might pay off. I'm sure it might is always super, super reassuring. But that is everything I have to talk to you guys about today. Thank you so much for making me part of your morning routine. I really do appreciate it. And thank you so much in particular to my patrons. You guys are the ones that make this show possible. If you're interested in becoming a patron, there's a link to my Patreon in the description of these episodes. Thank you so much in advance for even taking the time to go check that out. But with all that said, don't forget, guys, drink tea, play D&D, and keep on rolling.